Hello, hello, hello. This is Miss MTU coming to you with another video. Now, this video right here, this is some sauce. So I need for you to stick with me on this. This shoe that I have in my hand, hope you guys can see it. This shoe helped me not only connect with kids, but connect with a behavior, deal with a behavior that I had in regards to my students. So I'm gonna say it again. This shoe, I have this shoe right here, helped me connect with kids. And I'm going to share a story with you. I want you to just follow along because I know our attention spans are super short, but just stick with me on this one. Stick with me on this one. All right, so it's the middle of the school year. We were coming back from holiday break, whatever you want to call it, the beginning of the year, the beginning of this year, January. We were coming back from Christmas break, holiday break, winter break, whatever you call it. And I had these shoes on. Now, I have no idea about shoes. I know a little bit, but my goal when I get shoes is something that has to catch my attention. I wanted some black on black shoes. I wanted black on black shoes, and so I saw these shoes, and I didn't realize what kind of shoes they were until later. I knew they were like a name brand shoe, and I knew the Jordan sign back in the day, but I wasn't expecting the response I got from my students. So we come back from the holiday break. It's the first day back. Everybody, a little groggy, don't really want to be there. You know how that is when we come back from break after a couple of weeks of being off. So they did not want to be there. But I had these shoes on. And I kept getting compliments, from them. So a lot of my kids, different students were like, I like those shoes. I like those kicks. Those are nice. I was like, thank you, because they're comfortable. I just wanted a pair of black on black shoes that were not Air Force Ones. Air Force Ones, I know about them. Everybody wears those, right? So, well, most people that I know have a pair of black Air Force Ones. But this shoe, I liked the way it looked. I liked the way it felt. So I go to work and I have them on. I get all these compliments about these shoes, and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, what's going on? It was like, yeah, I like those shoes. So one of my students, I got all the compliments. We got in class. One of my students yelled out, Miss Middlebrook got the black cats on. And he said it just like that. Miss Middlebrook got them black cats on. And so the kids were like, yes. What? So this is what I do. I said, pause. So every whole class looking, what's going on? I said, first of all, everybody have a seat. Have a seat. Now, black cats, I don't like black cats. I knew they were talking about my shoe, but I'm going to tell you how I got them. I said, black cat, I said, black cats scare me. When I was a little girl, this black cat ran across the street, and I was walking down the street, and I fell. I said, I have this suspicion about black cats. I said, black cats everywhere. I said, I think they're pretty. I said, but my neighbor got one with yellow eyes, and I'm just scared of black cats. So they're looking, and they're like, no. So kids, everybody want to say something. I said, hold on. I have their attention now. I said, I need one person to represent the whole class and tell me what are you talking about in regards to black cats, because they wanted to respond to me. They said, so I picked I'm just going to name somebody, Billy. I said, Billy, you speaking for the whole class? Okay. No, Miss Middlebrook, I'm talking about black cat. That's the name of the shoe you got on. Them tight. I like them. Them fire. Them kicks. Yeah. I said, oh. So the shoes on my feet that I have on are called black cats. He said, yeah. I said, oh, woo. I said, y'all scared me. I thought y'all said we had a black cat in here. I don't play that with black cats. So they giggling. I said, I don't do that. I said, okay, so you're telling me that the shoe I have on is black cats. Now, what I just did was, not only did I catch their attention, we're having a conversation, right? I done woke them up a little bit because they was groggy coming in this morning. They didn't want to be there at school. Along with sometimes we don't want to be there either. We've been off break forever. So I said, okay, I said, so the shoe is called Black Cat. I said, I said, so is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Like, what kind of shoe is this? A good shoe or a bad shoe? I said, I got it because of the colors. You know, I like the color, the black on black, and they're really comfortable. They was like, yeah, those are some good shoes. Those some, name brand shoes. You got the Jordan. I said, I knew that, but, So I sit up there and I write Black Cat on the board. Black Cat. I said, okay. I said, I want to know how you all get the name Black Cat. What made you call these black cats? Because I had no idea. I'm thinking about an actual black cat. So they laugh. I said, but, okay, before we get into that, I said, thank you for looking at my shoes and liking them. I appreciate it. These are really comfortable to me. And I got them over break, and I like them. So that's why I got the shoe. I said, but I would like to know a little bit more about this shoe. I said, and then, so everybody wants to, get ready to talk. I said, hold on. Not now. I said, I got it up there on the board. I said, let's go ahead and get started. And put the shoe down. Let's go ahead and get started on our lesson. And let's see how much we can get done. I said, later on, we may be able to have, keyword, be able to have a conversation about the shoes that I have on. I said, because I really do want to know why it's called Black Cat. Oh, okay. I sat there and got a 15-minute lesson, language arts lesson in, super quick. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, anything to grasp them, right? So we get through the day, we get through our lesson, everybody go on throughout the day, we make it through. End of the day, they explain, we're wrapping up. I said, okay, tell me about the Black Cat. We get a few minutes to talk real quick before we get on the bus. Yeah, we call them Black Cat. That's just what we call them. That's the name. And we don't really know how the name came on, and different kids were saying stuff. I said, okay, hold on. I can't hear everybody. I need everybody. You got to raise your hand and I'll get you. And they were talking about that's what they call them in the streets out in there. When you have black on black shoes, you normally call them Black Cats. I said, okay. It's especially by being a Jordan shoe. I said, oh, okay. I said, okay, that's cool. I said, thank you. I appreciate that. I said, yeah, I'll be wearing these a lot on, when I feel like it. I said, so because they're comfortable on me. And they were like, yes, okay. Now, the young man that yelled out, Miss Middlebrook got them black cats on. I did not address that behavior right away. I could have said, hey, you know better. Don't be yelling out. You need to go sit down. Get out. Go to the office. I could have went that way. What was that going to do? I caught the kid's attention. I had already caught him when I said, pause, black cats. And I switched it and started talking about an actual animal, an actual cat. I knew they were talking about my shoes. But I wanted to shift that tension in the room. I wanted to wake the kids up a little bit, right? And this shoe woke them up a little bit. And I was able to get a lesson in. So the young man that screamed that comment, we getting ready to wrap up. And I pulled him to the side. I said, hey, what you did earlier, that yelling out, Miss Middlebrook and the Black Cat, I said, don't do that. I said, we don't do that here. You're in 8th grade. We don't do those in 8th grade. The appropriate way to respond would have been to come to me and say, hey, Miss Middlebrook, like the other kids did, and say, hey, I like your shoes. I said, so I don't want to see you yelling out like that. I said, because sometimes it can be a distraction. I didn't fuss at him. I didn't get mad at him. I pulled him to the side and said it real slick and quick. And he said, oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I said, okay. All right. Have a good day. This shoe not only helped me break the ice with kids coming back from break, it helped me build a connection with the group, because you got to reconnect when they come back. They've been gone 2 weeks. They ain't studying you. They've been gone. They didn't got their Christmas gifts. I was able to bring them in, even if it was just for a little bit. Bring them in, get a little bit of relaxation because they were laughing. I was able to do that and then still address the behavior that I saw displayed with that one student. Little things, guys, Different things will have you connecting with kids. It can be anything. I had no idea when I was going to walk in that building that this one shoe, was going to have me be able to have a whole conversation about shoes that I know more about now because of my students, because they wear all these fancy smancy shoes. I just wanted something comfortable. So you get kids like that and you're able to bring them in. I hope this video helped you guys. I know it's a little bit longer, but I wanted you all to stick with me on this because this is something that I thought was super cool. And every video that I do when I share a story is something that I've dealt with between the past 2 decades or so, past 25 years that I've been teaching. Everything that I share with you is from experience. So I've been through it so I can show how it helped me. And hopefully it may help you. It doesn't have to be a shoe, but it could be something else. Please, I want to thank everybody for liking my videos, for subscribing to my channel. I am so grateful for you guys. Continue to do so, and I will catch you next time.